Hi Isla, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me, and what I'd like to do is just reassure people that have had very, very serious phobias, similar to the one that you had, and probably different style of phobia, but as severe, that is worried about having treatment for it, because people often think that they're going to have to face the fear immediately, and are terrified of actually seeking treatment for it. So could you tell me first how your phobia affected your life?
I had, I suppose, a relatively unusual phobia in that I was terrified of taxidermy, and it's one of those phobias where unless it's something that you're very vigilant for, you don't think it's something you're going to run into, but actually it would make me very anxious if I was going, say, to a hotel or to a bar that I hadn't been to before, which was a problem because I travel a lot for work. It also meant I couldn't really go to most museums without phoning to check first, and that I'd be very, very anxious at things like antique shops or antique fairs or car boot sales, anywhere where you might unexpectedly find taxidermy, I suppose.
And it's much more common than most people think, because when you've got a phobia, then it's your central focus.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, you see them when other people don't notice them.
Absolutely. Yeah, people who would be out with me would always comment on how far away I would be from something before I would notice it, and that, you know, I'd say, well, I can't go there because there's a stuffed stag's head, and people who went there all the time say, is there? You know, they would never have noticed it.
Yes, yeah.
But it is also, because it isn't a phobia that's one of the kind of really well-known ones, that makes it quite embarrassing to tell people, and that had an effect as well. So in my job, my PA would phone ahead and check places, which is an embarrassing thing to have to ask, an embarrassing thing for them to have to do. And I think because it was an unusual phobia, I felt kind of slightly ridiculous in needing to do that.
Okay, thank you. So you decided to have treatment, and we used hypnosis and EFT. How did you experience hypnosis?
I really enjoyed it. I had hypnotherapy before and not enjoyed it, and found that it had actually made me feel a little bit anxious because it hadn't been done well, and it had just been really ineffective and with someone who hadn't really listened. But the experience of coming here for hypnosis was really relaxing, and I just felt very in control and felt great afterwards, actually.
Yes, it's a very pleasant experience, isn't it?
It was, yeah.
And you're very aware of what's going on the whole time.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the kind of, I'd done relaxation type things before as part of yoga, and it was very similar to that. It was just being relaxed, really.
It's a nice relaxed state, isn't it?
Yeah, really nice.
Okay, and how did you experience EFT? Because I don't think you'd had any experience of that. It looks very strange when you're new to it.
I think I'd seen people doing it. I'd seen people tapping, but didn't know what it was, and I found the whole thing really strange because it just worked so quickly. It was incredible for me to kind of, this kind of technique around fading very, very vivid, frightening images. The impact that had in one session was just strange. I couldn't quite believe it afterwards that those things that had been so vivid and so important and so controlling before were suddenly nothing.
Yes, and you're able to do that, aren't you, with EFT, without actually having to be with the problem or face the problem immediately. Yeah. You gradually creep up on it, don't you?
Absolutely, and it hadn't been. I did the EFT before the hypnosis, and it was really nice because it was a very safe way to tackle something that I was terrified, about confronting. So I knew I wasn't going to have to confront anything, and it was just very straightforward. It was sort of like a conversation, but magic.
It's a fantastic technique. So what changes did you begin to notice?
It all was very, very quick. From the very first session, the whole phobia just felt smaller. That fear felt smaller. I think the first thing that I noticed was that from coming to talk to you and having the EFT, I started to think much more broadly about what the phobia had meant to me, how it had kind of developed and become reinforced, and what it would mean to let go of it. And that was a big step, really, just to start to think in those terms. And I very quickly started to realise that I was going to be okay about taking steps to confront it, I think it took me, even when I knew how much less the phobia was, it took me a while to realise that I was actually just going to be fine. It took me a long while to realise that I wasn't going to feel that terror when I saw a stuffed animal, or was in that sort of circumstance. And actually I felt, the first few times that I did it, it felt very strange because I didn't really feel that terror at all. And that was a little bit disorienting to begin with, and then just kind of quite exhilarating really not to feel that frightened.
Yes, because at first it's hard to imagine, isn't it, that you're not going to be that person any longer with that phobia.
Absolutely.
And that changes your relationship with other people as well, because they expect you to have the phobia.
Yes.
So it can be very freeing.
Yes.
First you can't imagine it, and then it's very freeing to realise that you no longer have it.
Yes.
And you can just be you and enjoy life.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so what's life like now after you've done the treatment? What benefits has it brought you?
I go and do things that I wouldn't have done without feeling frightened before. So I went to the Cheshire Show for the first time, and did come across a stuffed boar, but I didn't feel anxious in the run up to it, whereas normally I would have kind of worked myself up over a few days about whether that was going to be an issue. I've been to pubs without checking first, walked in and been fine. I've been to museums and to sort of stately homes and things where I've been pretty certain I am going to see taxidermy, and still been absolutely okay. And a big motivation for me for seeking treatment was that since I've had my son, I've not wanted him to pick up on my phobia. So it's been really nice to go with him to places like that and know that he's not going to see any sort of fear reaction from me, that what he's going to see is just mummy being normal, which is what I wanted from it.
Yes, and you sent me those fantastic photographs of you sat in front of or
I've got
around.
I might need more treatment for my obsession of taking photographs of me with stuffed animals everywhere I go. Yeah, the kind of the thrill of being able to stand near things that previously would have, I would have had panic attacks if I'd been in the same room as. It's taken me a while to get over the excitement of that.
It's very empowering, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And every time I'm in that situation and cope fine, that just strengthens it. It just,
Yes.
Better.
So what would you say to reassure anybody about hypnosis or EFT who might be worried this is unsafe, or that lose control, or that they're going to have to face the fear? Because if it was something like rats or spiders, they having watched things on television, they think they're going to have to confront the thing immediately, and that's the only way to deal with it, and it's absolutely not. It's I do try and reassure people it's a very, very safe and gentle process. But what advice could you give to people who are worried about the treatment?
I mean, that was exactly my worry, is that even the thought of seeking treatment for the phobia made me think, well, the only way to seek treatment is eventually to be exposed to whatever frightens you, even just to see if it works, and that absolutely terrified me. I think it made a big difference coming to see you, because you talked about your experience of phobias, and so I knew that you understood that fear. There's not much else to say other than it just isn't like that. It's not about any loss of control. It's massively empowering. You know where you are, who you are at all times. It's just a bit of relaxation. You could open your eyes and then, walk out, take a phone call at any minute. You'd still be the same person. It's not a loss of anything. It's just a way to kind of get something in control that's controlling you.
Yes, so you're almost reprogramming your own mind through the suggestions that you allow yourself to absorb in a very safe way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Very appreciative of your time, and I hope that can reassure people that who live a life of fear, whether it's flying or some insect or something as random as buttons or thunder, that they can safely come and deal with a phobia and then just get on with their life, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I feel almost a little bit silly not for sorting it out sooner, because it kind of feels like it's been too big a thing for too long. It's lovely to be rid of it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.